I was just watching something on Alex Jones, and I usually don't watch him, but he had on Joel Skousen, who's, I think, in my opinion, is a very good expert on a lot of matters involving, what's going on with the globalists and all this type of stuff. Now, it's interesting to also point out, here's the thing I'm referring to. Globalist plan to nuke America revealed, and he's on a phone conversation with Joel Skousen, talking in an interview about various things going on. And I'll cut right to the chase what they mean by this. But it's also during the time of his money bomb. So, you know, Joel could actually tell you this information at any time, but this is the best time to present it because if you don't give Alex Jones money, you're not going to be able to prevent the globalists from nuking America. I guess that's the whole supposition here. But anyway, I'm not going to knock this thing because I agree with it 100%, as far as what Joel Skousen says. And he seems to be, I don't know if I guess he has. I mean, I'm sure he has studied Major Anatoliy Golitsyn, but he seems to be very much in agreement with it. One thing he pointed out right from the get-go was that in the 1980s, when the Soviet Union collapsed, it was basically planned. It was told to collapse, allowed to collapse, or whatever. The plan was to get money and aid and technology from the West by befriending the West. And when it's done, that stage is done, to build up again and tell the West, accept our terms. Now, he's talking like in 8 to 10 years, we're probably going to see a very strong Russia again. And what's going to happen through the globalist is that Russia is going to tell the United States and the West, or whatever it is, to accept the terms of their terms, and which is actually being told to them by the globalists. There's your conspiracy in a nutshell, right? In a nutshell. I don't think it's actually crazy. Actually, people, Major Golitsyn's been absolutely right all along. Now, actually, I'm going to give you a little, digress a little bit about what Major Golitsyn says. Basically, what's going to happen long range, not right away. I'm going to emphasize not right away. Total financial collapse of the West, not right away. This is something else Joel was pointing out, that these things are being exaggerated too much right now. But this can very well happen later on. But total financial collapse of the West, and then communism will be introduced in the West with the human face. See, this is one of my beefs with Russia today. I'm digressing a little bit before I get into this, but this is one of my beefs with Russia today. Russia today, even though they present accurate information and critical of the Western and the globalist and the Western elite and all this garbage, they leave out what goes on in Russia. Now, it's not just that, but here's my point, my twist. It'd be very easily done by CNN, CBS, NBC, and all those major media outlets to counterattack Russia today with a lot of good, hard facts that could present Putin in a very bad light, or a lot of people on the top of Russia. The disparity of wealth between all the billionaires in Moscow and the average Russian person who doesn't really have much. See, I'm not knocking Russia or the Russian people, but there is problems there that are even more acute than in the United States. So, why are not the major media counterattacking? They're not, because they want you to run to Russia today as your savior. And eventually, that fits along with the rest of the plan, basically, that Major Golitsyn says that in the long range, communism is going to be introduced in the West, to the West, with a human face. And communism is basically globalism. It's been formulated by globalists in the first place. So, throwing that word around a lot, but hopefully you get what I mean. It's a shrewd maneuver. And, you are actually being led to Russia today as your savior. It's not cool. Believe me, it's not cool. So, I don't like going into any kind of trap one way or the other. Now, Joel actually, he points out a few things about, the collapse coming up. He says he doesn't think you're going to go into hyperinflation that fast. The dollar's going to be around for a long time. It's probably going to be the world reserve currency for a long time. A lot of these things, even some of these things, are being planted as rumors. There was a story out there. He pointed out that the euro was going to collapse or some garbage because Germany was printing its own Deutschmarks and they were getting off the euro. He says that was blatantly false rumor that was planted by somebody very high up. He says the leadership in Germany is never going to get away from the euro, period. They don't want it. It's there. You know, the people in Germany, the people in Italy, France, Spain, Greece, they don't want the euro. That's the people. The leaders are all solidly behind it. And, you know, that was a rumor that was put out there. He also mentioned a little bit about Lindsey Williams. Now, he wasn't highly critical. He tiptoed around that, but he said that the guy, Lindsey Williams, was originally getting the information from Ken Fromm from Atlantic Richfield. He thought it was very good. He says what he's getting from now, he says he's suspected the information. Me, I'm highly suspected the information. It's like all disinformation that you may get, could legitimately be termed disinformation. It's a mixture of truth and a mixture of garbage. Anytime Lindsey Williams comes out with some, I don't want to knock him too much, but anytime he comes out with something that I'm going to save your dinner table, you better run the other way for that specific financial advice, because I've been looking at his track record since his new guy took over. It stinks. Anyway, I do want to talk about somebody else who I will say is a bona fide disinformation crackpot, and that's Max Keiser. This guy, Joel actually referenced to this about Max Keiser having a timeline from when a dollar's going to collapse or some crap like that. I'm not even paying attention when I heard of it. I forgot even when it's supposed to happen. I really don't care. The only thing I could possibly think of, maybe that might be in coordination with a run-up with the metals. Then the dollar doesn't collapse and the metals crash again. Maybe that's the deal. Because if there's ever somebody out there I can consider somebody maybe who's really part of the disinformation, maybe it would be Max Keiser. I don't trust this guy at all. He acts like a clown, and I really can never go along with that garbage about break J.P. Morgan, buy a silver coin. I don't think it's going to work like that, period. Not at all. You're not going to break the banksters by buying physical silver. It's a good investment, but that's not going to happen. So, a lot of times you're hearing to hear this stuff about screaming from the top of their lungs, the dollar's going to fall, the collapse of the Western economies is near, the euro is going to fall, the derivative market's about ready to implode. A lot of this stuff is disinformation to the max. It's probably going to happen at one point in time, but he's saying you got longer. I think that's the case too. I think the dollar is going to be around pretty strong for quite some time. You're going to see the metals creeping up. Gold's going to be creeping up. It's not going to go down. You're going to see inflation. Maybe you're going to see 12 to 14% inflation in 2013, but you're not going to see 100%. So, that's where I'm coming from. So, now he talks about some other things with the Muslim Brotherhood in Iran. He states that Iran basically is not, they're not a major threat to us, obviously. I think they're, I have my opinions on that, but he's correct that, they're not going to be able to take out the West. There's no way any Muslim nation's going to be able to take out the West, even years to come. The only ones that can actually do that is Russia or China, period. They're the only big ones on the block that could do that. What's going on with the Muslim Brotherhood and all this type of stuff, and it's basically there to bring about more tension, terrorism, so you can give up your rights. The tensions with the Middle East, the tensions with the Muslims, a lot of that is being pushed so you give up your individual rights. There's more and more controls, Homeland Security, TSA, and all that other garbage. Now, he mentioned something else interesting about Saudi, which pretty much conflicted what Lindsey Williams said. He doesn't think the Saudis are going to be backstabbed. He doesn't think that's going to happen. He says they've been too useful. Now, some people would just say, well, Lindsey Williams says they're going to backstab him at the end, and I don't know. I mean, I pick up, and, I hope people pick this up too, that the guy that Lindsey Williams is getting information from now is not good. Okay, so it's kind of like forget about that deal. So, I think what's going to happen, though, in the short term, the dollar's actually going to be around a long time. So if you see all these talk about imminent collapse, the inflation rate's going to go and the derivative market's going to blow up any minute, I'll bet you we got at least a couple years before anything of that kind of garbage happens. It's going to take a while. It's going to take some time. But, we will probably get involved in a war with Iran, which will be very bullish for oil, gold, and silver. So there's no doubt about those facts. But long range, he's got some very bad news, and I've been thinking this for quite some time, too, because the long range plan is that the Soviet Union is going to be Soviet Union. I call it that, but I guess it's from older days. But Russia is going to be built up behind the scenes, and it's going on right now. As a matter of fact, they're not accepting money from the West because when they accept money from the West, there's inspections that tie to their nuclear armaments and what they're doing. So they're doing this, and it's always been accused that even money we gave them to dismantle nukes, they dismantled nukes, but they also used that money to develop more high-tech weapons. So, it's probably coming down is something that people don't even want to think about. I don't know. I'm going to kind of be brief here with this, but he put Joel out here, Alex Jones, quite obvious to me, at least, plain and simple. He put Joel out here to talk because this is the time that Alex Jones needs his money bomb. So this guy's going to scare the crap out of you, giving Alex Jones money to save you from the globalists who want to nuke America. But I don't think Alex Jones is going to be the one that's really going to save you. Something else, too, he pointed out that's pretty much, I think, is good information. I think is excellent information, actually. Joel pointed out, is that there's never going to be a coup from the military. That I agree with 100%. There's not going to be a coup from the military. If there ever was a coup from the military, it's going to come from the underlings. It's never going to come from the general, the brass, or any of those people. They are 100% yes men. I mean, even though they can have good characters and all this kind of garbage, they will not buck the system. Even General Smedley Butler did not buck the system. He's the one that wrote the War is a Racket, the Marine Corps Commandant. He wrote War is a Racket. When they almost had a coup against FDR, he basically stopped it. He helped stop it. They probably should have had a coup against FDR. We wouldn't have been in World War II or something. There'd been a big difference between what happened in a lot of things. But as far as the military actually having a coup, not in a million years. That'll never happen. And, if there's a really, really, really remote chance of it happening, it would be more like Spartacus, it would be the underlings, the revolting. And that's going to take leadership in itself. So I can never see that lasting that long either. So, probably the best thing to actually counteract a lot of the globalists is almost like non-compliance with things. Not saying like directly, go against it all the way, but the thing to really stick with is the Bill of Rights. The thing that was added to the Constitution as an afterthought. The Bill of Rights is probably the best document you can have for the globe. I mean, whether it's for Americans, Russians, Chinese, South Americans, Europeans, Africans, Japanese, Australians. The Bill of Rights that was written into the Constitution as an afterthought, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, and that the last amendment about you have rights other than what's enumerated here. Just because we enumerated all these rights, that doesn't mean you have more rights. That's the most important thing to remember, and individuality. That's probably the biggest thorn in the side to the globalists, because really what the globalists are, in a nutshell, is good bunch of control freaks. So the more independent you are, the more you pull their power. So that's one thing. And another thing is, too, a lot of people have this big aversion to joining the military. Well, first off, you're not necessarily doesn't mean it's a death sentence. I want to point that out. But people who are against the globalist should join the military and also keep their mouth shut and go in the military. They shouldn't have people that are attracted to wanting to just kill people for the fun of it joining the military. You should have people in there that are conscientious people. You can't be a conscientious objector. You can't do that. But you can be a Bill of Rightist. So it's actually those type of people are you really need them in the military as long as possible. The only problem is those type of people will never make it to the general ranks or any real high ranks or anything like that because they're weeded out. It doesn't matter how good you are, how much you trained, how physically fit you are, how intelligent you are, how high your ASVAB tests are, your combat skills training, what you did, your all your skills. It wouldn't matter. They weed out anybody who's basically a Bill of Rightist. That's why I say there never ever will be a coup from the top in the military in a million years. Not in a million years. And he's absolutely correct. Joel says this too. That's something else I want to add to that point. But probably, like I said, it's the individual efforts that actually make the difference. And the fact that a lot of people that don't like the globalists will not join the military kind of helps them. So, I mean, I don't want to, I'm not being a recruiter here or nothing like that, but, it's a shame because, it's like the average rank and file can actually throw a thorn in the side of a lot of things, too. And they know it, too. They know it. They know it. Because they're trained also in arms. That's something else to think about, so. And as long as they understand, that's probably where you're really going to have the backbone of everything. And, that's really what it comes down to. The Second Amendment, the militia is the average civilian population at large. It's the citizen soldier. It's not the globalist army. So you always want Bill of Rightist in the Army, in the Marine Corps, in the Navy, in the Air Force, those type of people. So, it's kind of a shame that on one hand, you got people that are like anti-military because they don't want war, but I don't think anybody in the military really wants war. They want to defend their country. That's what they're about. So, it's a matter of, trying to keep the right people in here. So, that's an important consideration too, because you're never going to see a coup coming from the top, not in a million years. So, if the people on the top are told to do something against even the American public or whatever it is, if you have the right type of people that are on the bottom, you could circumvent a lot of those orders in a lot of cute little ways that they can never figure out. So that's another consideration by having people in the military that are, on the side of the Bill of Rights. And it's got to come from the bottom, not from the top.